What do you mean you don't like Assassin's Creed 3? Welcome back to Emergency Retro Rebound. In today's video, we are going back to what many people call the black sheep of the Assassin's Creed franchise. You know what you've done to me? Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I fell down the Assassin's Creed rabbit hole on YouTube. I started to see a lot of people turn the corner on this game in the 2020s. Like, hey, hated this game when I was younger, love it nowadays. To me, this was the Assassin's Creed game. You just had to be there. Why is that? Let's go down the history of it. Assassin's Creed 1 comes around. Okay, we got the Assassin's Brotherhood. We got the Templars. We got the Middle East. Okay, I think I know what the series is doing. Then we go to Italy during the Renaissance era. We start to see very famous figures during that time. It's like, oh, this series has unlimited potential. That's really where the speculation in my teenage years began. Like, where can we put the Assassin's Creed franchise? What would be our favorite time period to go to? And obviously on that list were two areas, right? Japan, which finally we got to. We're not going to talk about that one though. And the American Revolution was another one that immediately came to mind. You know, how do you handle, like, with the guns and everything? That's kind of anti-Assassin's Creed. Well, they figured it out, in my opinion. So I'll always remember going on Facebook during school and seeing that promotional image, which ended up being the cover art for Assassin's Creed 3 of Connor with the hatchet in the air. I remember seeing that for the first time and going, oh my God, they're actually doing it. They're doing the American Revolution. And I think it was a brilliant choice because of how well they captured the setting, how brutal the combat was. And I'm not an Assassin's Creed combat fan by any means, but some of these finishing animations are so nasty. Have you seen the rope dart in this game? It's unbelievable. You just hang people from trees in this game. I miss that sort of brutality in this series, but it was captured so well, and I think it captures it well because of the hatred that is within this game based on the story and what it's focusing on. You're an assassin who is a Native American who's being pushed out of his lands. Like, all his moves have a sense of heft and anger to them. In a lot of ways, this is thematically, to me, one of the best Assassin's Creed games. I know I'm talking a lot of crazy here, but I ended up, by falling into the YouTube rabbit hole, doing my own replay of Assassin's Creed 3 as someone who's always liked the game. And I fell in love again. Not everything's perfect. I got my complaints, but man, I really do enjoy a lot of what Assassin's Creed 3 brings to the table, flaws and all. It was just a special time to be gaming. If I were to equate it to film, it's like when you watch a movie during the 80s or the 90s. You see how it's shot. You see the type of cameras they use. There's a heart, there's a soul to it that you just don't find oftentimes in modern film. I think that way about this era of video games during the 360 days. You see, gaming had to find a way. When facial animations had not reached the heights that they are at now, when fidelity wasn't everything, we had to find new ways to convey emotion. Music mattered so much more. Voice acting mattered a ton. You had to carry the entire experience. Your environments, which Ubisoft was incredible at during this time period, and I think frankly are still great at making wonderful environments, were everything. These were the ways games carried the weight when they did not have the technology we have nowadays that they can just lean on like a crutch. And to me, Assassin's Creed 3 represents a lot of that. Was it an Assassin's Creed 2 moment for me? No, definitely not. But I do think AC3 stands in a really strong place nowadays, and I aim to break all that down. If you're new here and you're into nostalgic or retrospective content, you're in the right place. Consider subscribing. So let's rewind the clock. It's 2012. I played this game. I loved it. I remember there was like a huge snowstorm and it killed all the power. So I had to take my PS3 to my grandma's house, my Nana's, and she had power somehow. And I remember playing Assassin's Creed 3 in her bedroom on the CRT. Like, I was just, wherever I could get my gaming on, I would. And that was also such a bad storm. We were gaming in hotels for a couple of days. And I was playing Dynasty Warrior Strike Force in there. Just, I remember that so vividly. And also, of course, with Assassin's Creed 3 having a ton of snow, you see the connection there. So yeah, there's also a time in like 2014 that I was just really bored. I had nothing to do. Assassin's Creed 3 was still installed on my PS3. So I fired it up. I did like all the frontier missions. I came really close to the Platinum Trophy and I just fell in love with the game again. It's the one Assassin's Creed game I always find myself going back to, unlike any other. I say all this up front because I want you to know, yeah, there is some nostalgia here, but I don't think it blinds me from what the game doesn't do as well. It's some of the cutscenes and the way they're shot and how close they get to these characters' faces and how bad, even in the remaster, these faces look. Yeah, not ideal. However, this Assassin's Creed game is understandably critiqued because of the opening 6 sequences. Yes, for like 10 plus hours in this game, you don't get to do what you did in other Assassin's Creed games. You don't get to just roam the open world within a couple hours. Get your assassin's gear on and just go out and do whatever in a couple hours. You play as Hatham for a while. You see the story from the Templars' point of view. Then you see Connor raised as a kid into an adult and what builds that hatred within him. And then by sequence 6, he is finally an assassin. It absolutely has its issues. There are some spots where I feel they could have sped things up a little bit more, but the real question is, would I change anything? And the answer is no, because this was during a time period where I feel Assassin's Creed was unapologetic about taking its story seriously. And I say this as someone who was a late appreciator of the Assassin's Creed story. What I mean by that is, to me, the best character in any Assassin's Creed game was the world. So I did not care about Assassin's Creed Brotherhood. I did not care about Revelations, which I know is sacrilege. I care more about them now. I still have to finish them. But for me, going back to Italy again, or going back to the Middle East again, like, I wanted a new setting. So whenever there was a new setting, that's what pulled me in. So when we went to Italy for the first time, when we went to the American Revolution for the first time, when we're sailing the sea for the first time in AC4, that sort of stuff is what pulled me in. But during this era, Assassin's Creed 3 was supposed to be the finale. There was a sense of weight with the present day story and what that meant for the future of the franchise. Was it going to end here? There was also building up Hatham, a Templar who you thought was going to end up being a setup for the Assassin's Brotherhood, like a huge plot twist at that point in time. But I always point to this game when people say, well, Assassin's Creed game stories kind of suck nowadays. Ubisoft's writing sucks nowadays. This was during a time where I wouldn't say their writing was incredible or anything, but it had heart, it had soul, it had personality, it had purpose. Every scene had meaning. You didn't just play as Hatham because, hey, it would be cool to play as a Templar, you know, we just got to keep this series going. There was a reason to connect Connor and Hatham and then put Charles Lee firmly in that villain role. It meant so much to the story, which is something that I feel Assassin's Creed is missing nowadays. And then when you combine that with the wonderful backdrop of the American Revolution and weaving these characters into that, it creates something that I also think Assassin's Creed is desperately missing nowadays. That's atmosphere. I think about things like the Boston Massacre scene in this game. It's a snowy night. You hear the church bells ringing. There's a bit of symbolism in that. It's moody, it's atmospheric. It's one of the first games that during my teenage years, I just stopped to look at the world existing around me and admire the lengths Ubisoft went to at that time to make it real. Not just the weather, but also watching different battalions of British soldiers marching around and hearing the marching drums, and just watching people at vendors try to sell things, town criers, propaganda on the wall. Like, it was just so much effort gone into building this world, and when you had that as the backdrop to what I thought was a pretty good story, that's what really pulled me in, made me fall in love. Now, to be fair, I think there was a level that was left on the table with the present day story to me when it came to how they executed it gameplay wise. There's a point when you're at the end of sequence 5 where even I went, oh my gosh, okay, like Connor finally puts on the assassin's outfit and then you get kicked out of the Animus. Yeah, I'm right there with you. Like, that moment where you're like, finally, I'm the we're going back to the present day, and there's a whole sequence of gameplay there. That bummed me out a little bit. But I do think Ubisoft is sleeping on a great experience they could create for stealth game fans between the present day and whatever era they're representing, because I always feel like they could totally make a present day Assassin's Creed experience that's basically Splinter Cell. So why not try to put some of that Splinter Cell experience into Assassin's Creed so it's not that much of a slog when you have to platform as Desmond, where he's got like none of the tools or the cool things that you enjoy from the other Assassins. He's just kind of a platformer, and that's it at the end of the day. So I just feel like that's some of the stuff that took the wind out of the sails of these gameplay segments. But the story, again, has those scenes with deep purpose. I think about when Charles Lee shows up to Connor's village, burns it down, and Connor asks what his name is. He wants to remember his face. That's where like the seed of vengeance is planted. And Connor's anger is such a big focal point of this story. When you look at the combat throughout the game, I'm no Assassin's Creed combat fan. It's very simple. You know, hey, you're holding a musket. Okay, break defense, tear you down. Oh, you're going to attack me and I see a triangle over your head. Be done, countered, you're dead. But with the hatchet, even with the muskets where you can just stab it into someone and shoot them, the way that you just cut down your opponents in this game, you feel Connor's anger, and it also just sounds really good to me. So I know some people are gonna like my take on this, but I really sincerely enjoy what Assassin's Creed 3 brings to the table in the terms of setting and storytelling. It's really good stuff, but more importantly is that atmosphere I talked about. It's just constant throughout the entire experience. It's also about how important it was for the future of the franchise. I think a lot of people forget, because I see so many people celebrate AC4, and I do like AC4 a lot, but a lot of people are like, man, that game was so important to the series. I look at Assassin's Creed 3 and I think, dude, on top of everything else I'm about to talk about, they also introduced the boat combat that they built an entire video game off of. So in Assassin's Creed 3, one of the things I really like about it are the divisions of content you have. You have your main story, you have the open world side activities, you know, go get your treasure chests, go get your almanacs. That stuff's all well and good. Get your synchronization points. Yeah, very basic by the numbers Assassin's Creed stuff. But then you have citizen missions. Then you have frontier missions. Now, frontier missions are really awesome to me because this is where a whole entire economy explodes in Assassin's Creed 3. Okay, so now you have people that you can send out on missions. You have people you can recruit to the frontier that can build you certain things, craft you certain things. You have to go out into the world, get materials for them to build and craft these sorts of things, so it makes all those side quests have purpose. These frontier missions are multi-layered, full-on quest lines, not just one and dones like today's usual Ubisoft quests. And if that wasn't enough, then you have the naval missions. And to me, this is where I just say you got to take your cap off and salute them. I know games were different back then. They came together quicker, but the combat system, while greatly expanded in AC4, the core of it is here in AC3 in what are naval missions. They're first introduced in Sequence 5, and I think this is where Connor's voice actor really shines. Like, I think Noah Watts killed it in this role, and it's a shame because I looked at his IMDb and I don't see him really in anything else except Assassin's Creed. Like, he just comes back to voice Connor anytime they really need him to. But I'll even imitate lines from Connor when I'm playing Assassin's Creed 4, like, bring it in to half sail. Like, he's got this raspiness to him that I always found really cool. Some people call him vanilla or just kind of bland. Again, I don't really pick up what y'all are putting down on that front, because I think his purpose in the story is very clear as he is brought in. Like, he is a vengeful character, and he is warned by Achilles from the start, like, if you're going to go down this route, you might regret it. And he learns so much and develops so much alongside Hatham in this story. I think he's a great assassin. I think he's one of my favorites. The game reminds me a lot of what kind of situation Fallout 4 was in. A lot of people, because the game was so big, played Fallout 4 when they were teenagers, and they hated the game. Then they went back to it when they were older, and they went, oh, I kind of get what this game's doing now. I think that happened with Assassin's Creed 3. I mean, I literally went online and just watched a bunch of these retrospectives of people going, I was a teenager, I played it, I hated it. Now I get it, now it's great. I really do feel like, in a lot of ways, it was an Assassin's Creed game for, like, adults, mature adults who can kind of see through, understand the themes, and not be like how many of us were in our teenage years, like, oh man, you know, I just want to play as assassin right now, what the hell? That's not to say Ubisoft is blameless in all of this, because really the brutal truth is, if you play through Sequence 1 through 6, yeah, it is a really elongated tutorial. Every little feature of the game is part of this entire experience, and it shows how big the game is. But you see everything from the hunting to the naval missions, to the frontier missions, to standard assassinations, to disguise system, to stealth gameplay, to action gameplay, chase sequences. You see all of this game and its tools and its little ideas it's got across these 6 sequences, and then it sets you loose upon all of it for another like 50 or 60 hours if you'd like. But it's those naval missions that I always go back to, where I say to people how important Assassin's Creed 3 was. Because to me, without 3, there is no 4, and 4 being one of the best open world Assassin's Creed games, so refreshing with its boat gameplay and how it expanded with the upgrades that you can get on your ship. Assassin's Creed 3 had a little bit of that, but it was not nearly as open and expansive as what Assassin's Creed 4 was doing. Assassin's Creed 3, however, because of all the content I'm talking about, does feel very compartmentalized. Like, you have, instead of one grand open world, you have a lot of open zones, which I like, but at the same time, it does feel a bit constrained, especially if you're playing it nowadays. You have the frontier broken up into multiple parts. So if you don't have, say, a city unlocked, when you first go to Boston after sequence 6, like you're going to run through the frontier, you're going to run through a second segment of the frontier, then you're going to be on the outskirts of Boston and run through that. There's a lot of flatlands in this game, and that's something people had an issue with. But I feel Assassin's Creed 3 evolved the parkour in a meaningful way, being able to climb up trees, swing around trees. I think there's a flow to the parkour in this game, not AC Unity level, but I think it's actually pretty good. I did have my moments when exploring the world after sequence 6 where, you know, you do that old-fashioned, I misread a jump where I thought I was going to do a nice old leap of faith, but your boy just ends up splatting on the ground. You have those moments there, but yeah, it feels a little compartmentalized as you're running to and fro in the early parts of the game. Then once you can fast travel to a city and hang out there for a while, then it's really of no problem at all to me. But there are those moments where it's like, why is the frontier broken up into like 3 or 4 different parts now? It gets a little ridiculous there for sure. I do wish at least the frontier was one big open area, and I wouldn't hate if all of the cities were their own separate open areas. You understand why this is the case based on when the game released, but when you think about when it was also released, the load times were really bad, and that really hurt the game. Nowadays, with this remaster behind me here, the load times are just in a snap. You don't even think about them. So the remaster does help remove some of the stuff that would bother a lot of people. There are also people complaining that the loading screens were like bright and white, and am I weird for like never giving a single crap about that? But I don't know. It never bugged me. And this is coming from a kid who played this game in his teens in like dark rooms where I was just like, okay, like this is just completely illuminating the whole room. But I remember that being a big complaint about the game too. I don't know. I thought it was just a product of like some fair criticism, but also some really unfair forced criticism because people just were so angry about sequence 1 through 6, which again, I do understand. It's a very long prologue / tutorial, but I think it adds so much to the story that the second half of the game is just some of the best Assassin's Creed you can get. If you find a way to enjoy that first half, you get so much out of it. So yeah, the weather, the parkour, the ship gameplay, the amount of content, the types of content, the historical figures you see, the hatred in the combat, the themes it tackles, the script even, like just how jovial it can be at times, but how serious it can be at times. Like when Connor just throws his hatchet into the pillar and he says, "This is a sign of my people. When we bury the hatchet, that means that we are in a war, and when it's removed from that pillar, that is when the fighting has stopped." It immediately sets an interesting little bit of tension there of like when that'll be removed and what will happen to these characters in that time period between now and then. Like these little things are just missing from Assassin's Creed games nowadays. And this, to me, as many people mark, was not where Assassin's Creed started to go downhill. I think we're many games away from that. In fact, I think Assassin's Creed stayed pretty good up until Odyssey. I thought Origins was a breath of fresh air, even though I was not a big fan of it. I liked where they were taking the game and the series. And then Assassin's Creed Odyssey, I thought was awesome. We have a whole retrospective of that here on this channel. It's after that that I really feel they have run out of ideas, and I miss this style of Assassin's Creed so much. The one that has soul, the one that was not afraid to put its story first, and the one that had 1,000,001 gameplay ideas and just did not care about anything else except shoving all of them into one product. That's the Assassin's Creed I miss, and God, do I love this game. So there's your defense of Assassin's Creed 3, ladies and gentlemen. I'm very curious to get your thoughts on AC3. I went a little hard aggro here. I'm sorry, Retro Rebound audience, but I can't sometimes understand the dislike this game gets. I understand the weight it had on its shoulders, but I think removed from the zeitgeist, give it another chance. See how you feel about it. Ladies and gentlemen, I leave it in your hands, though. Let me know what you're thinking of Assassin's Creed 3 down below. Other than that, take excellent care of yourselves, and I will see you in the next Retro Rebound. Peace out.